In this video, I offer my views on the controversial Indian movie Kashmir Files. Its director Vivek Agnihotri and Kashmiri Pandits or Brahmins. Hello friends, this is Unmasked Truth with Harmanjeet Saini, where I provide unique analysis of world events based on the unmasked truth that after surrender Germany continued World War II clandestinely and became a killing machine. I also provide true news that you will find nowhere else. About 2 weeks ago, I saw the movie Kashmir Files in a theater in my hometown of Tampa, Florida, in the United States because of the hype around it. The movie was hyped through the social media with clips of emotional viewers in India coming out of the theater after watching the movie and speaking harshly against secularism in India, which according to them was responsible for allowing the massacre of Brahmins and the displacement of above 200,000 of them out of Kashmir. My interest in the movie was also piqued because I have made two videos on the subject on my YouTube and Facebook channels. In the first video dated October 19, 2021, titled Who from Pakistan is Behind the Murder of Four Sikh Soldiers and a Teacher in Kashmir and Their Motives, I described how Pakistan and its ISI controls the narrative regarding Kashmir through its funding and support for individuals born in India administered Kashmir, but who later moved to Saudi Arabia and then shifted their base of operations in the United Kingdom and USA. The stated aim of the organization set up these Muslim individuals is independence for Kashmir or merger of India administered Kashmir with Pakistan, depending on who is listening or who the audience is. ISI has roped in some white Americans to amplify the Kashmir issue in America. The fake Kashmir narrative of human rights abuses by India in Kashmir has been established and propagated solely by the Pakistani establishment, particularly ISI. It seems that Kashmir has become a concern all around the world except of the Kashmiri people themselves. The handful of people of Kashmiri origin receiving funding support from ISI have lived in the United States, UK, and European Union for decades and have little or no connection with Kashmir or the Kashmiri people living in Kashmir. Lately, they have passed on the mantle of leadership to their children as a family business. ISI also funds terrorist organizations based in Kashmir to commit acts of terrorism in the Indian part of Kashmir. But these ISI sponsored propaganda outfits don't talk of human rights abuses committed by the terror organizations. My second video, dated November 25, 2021, titled Part 2 of the story about the violence in Kashmir Province in India, is about the events in the early 1990s that are the subject of the movie Kashmir Files. In this video, I describe how Muslim leaders from Indian part of Kashmir were involved in terrorizing minorities, the Hindus and Sikhs, by murdering some as a warning to others to leave the state so that they could occupy the lands and properties owned by them. The victims' Muslim neighbors watched approvingly when they were being murdered and in some cases were identified for the murderers. After the exodus of Brahmins, lands and properties were occupied by Muslims. In my video, I described many more murders and massacres of Hindus than are covered in the movie. Therefore, I was fully conversant with the subject matter of the movie when I saw it. It's estimated that from September 1989 to October 1990, at least 315 Kashmiri Brahmins were murdered. Each of these more than 315 cases is the story of a similar brutal atrocity committed on Hindus, including torture and mutilation of the body while the person was still alive, gang rape, or being shot dead. These murders had the intended effect on the Hindu population in Kashmir of causing a mass exodus. Various estimates put the number of Kashmiri Brahmins or Pandits who fled the valley anywhere from 100,000 to 200,000 or from 70 to 95% of the population. Though the government has offered some incentives for them to return, Pandits are not returning to the valley because of the ongoing violence carried out by terror outfits based in Indian as well as Pakistani parts of Kashmir. The Modi government is not making sincere efforts to help the Pandits to return to Kashmir and make them feel secure there. The movie truthfully depicts a few of the more graphic murders. The events did take place. The word genocide is stressed in the movie again and again on what happened to the Kashmiri Pandits. Genocide, according to Merriam Webster, means the deliberate and systematic destruction of a racial, political, or cultural group. Exodus means a mass departure. The murder of about 315 Kashmiri Pandits from an estimated population of about 200,000 is definitely not a genocide, but the departure of around 100,000 to 150,000 of them is definitely a forced exodus. Another wild estimate, most likely exaggerated, puts the total number of Kashmiri Pandits who departed at 700,000 to 800,000. But the important issue here is that this violence to force the exodus of Hindu population was orchestrated by the Muslim leaders living in the state. The pretext used to involve the Muslim population was Islamic ideology that Kashmir belongs to Muslims only. But the hidden agenda of the Muslim leaders was to grab the lands and urban property of the Hindus after they left the state. After the Brahmins and other Hindus fled the Kashmir Valley, Kashmir's top Muslim politicians, leaders, and bureaucrats did occupy the properties and, with the help of bureaucrats, obtained title to them. Though the movie truthfully depicts a few gruesome murders that took place, the wider truth is ignored. The context in which these murders took place is ignored. The movie has been criticized as a propaganda with the support of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's ruling party, the BJP, to paint all Muslims as evil. The movie accomplishes that purpose, though it can be argued that it is the producer's prerogative to choose whatever to cover in the movie, as it is impossible to cover every aspect of the context in which specific events took place. During 1989 to 1990, Indian politics was in flux. Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi lost the Prime Minister's office on December 2, 1989 due to election defeat. The new Prime Minister VP Singh from a minority party had to rely on the support of the BJP and other parties to hold office. Pakistan and some Kashmiri Muslims saw this as an opportunity to fight for separation of Kashmir from India to merge with Pakistan. The Pakistan military establishment saw it as an opportunity to avenge its defeat in the Bangladesh Liberation War in 1971 and the loss of East Pakistan, which became independent Bangladesh. In the summer of 1989, thousands of Kashmiri youth, with the support of their families, entered Pakistan for training as jihadis. Thus, there was some grassroots support for the violent movement to separate Kashmir from India and merge it with Pakistan. The secessionists started murders of Pandits to force them to leave Kashmir. The youth, after completing their training as jihadis, returned to Kashmir in the spring of 1990. However, by no means the Muslim secessionists were in a majority. In fact, Muslim civilians who opposed joining Pakistan were also killed in terrorist acts. According to figures compiled by India's Union Ministry of Home Affairs in 1989 and 1990, number of Hindu civilians killed was 6 and 177 respectively, whereas the number of Muslim civilians killed was 73 and 679 respectively. Thus, in 1990, there were nearly 4 times as many Muslim civilians killed as Hindu civilians. According to www.telegraphodline.com, former Chief of India's Research and Analysis Wing, A.S. Daulat, said, in December 1989, Home Minister Mufti Muhammad Saeed's daughter Rubaya Saeed had been kidnapped, and in exchange for her release, 5 JKLF terrorists had been freed. That changed the atmosphere in Kashmir overnight, says Daulat, who was the Intelligence Bureau station chief in Kashmir at the time. Overnight, many youngsters were convinced that independence for the state was just around the corner. There were celebrations in Srinagar like it was Diwali. the Hindu festival, he says. But after the five people were released, everything went out of control and there was a lot of bloodshed, he says. I was there when it all began. It was pretty nasty times, that winter of 1989-90, Dulat recalls. In the months that followed the killings, the death toll shot through the roof. In May 1990, armed assassins barged into the home of Mirwais Maulvi Muhammad Farooq, a Muslim, and shot him dead. Then came a string of targeted killings, including four of Dalat's own IB team, Intelligence Bureau team, killed within a space of just 3 weeks. Terrorists also killed members of the Jammu and Kashmir Police Special Branch. It went from bad to worse, he says. He also says many more Muslims left Kashmir than Hindus, but later came back when the situation got better. Dulat says that many Pandits who chose to stay behind were protected by Muslims. Thus, though the film portrays events concerning the murder of Kashmiri Pandits truthfully, it also portrays all Kashmiri Muslims as evil, which is contrary to the facts. If I had carefully checked who the director Vivek Agnihotri was, I would not have seen the film because I already knew from my video more than what the film showed through my own research for my video on the subject. I knew more than the film. I would also have known that Vivek Agnihotri deliberately distorts facts for propaganda purposes. In my video of January 30, 2021 titled Was Lal Bahadur Shastri, Prime Minister of India, murdered on January 11, 1966? If yes, why and by whom? I had come across Vivek Agnihotri's theories concerning the murder of Prime Minister Lal Bahadur Shastri in Tashkent and the former Soviet Union. He tried to blame the murder on the Soviet KGB to deflect the blame from the true culprit, the Kashmiri Pandit or Brahmin, India's ambassador to the Soviet Union, Triloki Nath Kaul. It proved to me that Vivek Agnihotri is a dishonest man, habitually given to distorting the truth. If I had remembered that this was the same Vivek Agnihotri, I would not have seen the movie Kashmir Files. Now, what is Vivek Agnihotri and the BJP's, that is Narendra Modi's party, what is their motive in maligning all Muslims? It goes all the way back to the alliance of some Indians with the Germans since the late 1950s and early 1960s, beginning with India's old money people, the Marwadis of Rajasthan, Parsis of Bombay, Gujaratis of Gujarat, and Baniyas and others. They have been amply financially rewarded by the Germans. Therefore, they will do whatever the Germans ask them to do without knowing the true treacherous nature of the Germans, who will use any people without qualms for their own nefarious purposes. The Germans have had an alliance with the Pashtuns in Afghanistan and Pakistan, who have been used to start wars with India. Pakistani generals Ayub Khan and Yahya Khan were Pashtuns who led Pakistan in the 1965 and 1971 wars against India. Now the Pashtun Imran Khan is the Prime Minister of Pakistan and the Taliban rulers of Afghanistan are Pashtuns. The German plan is to use the Pashtuns to attack Kashmir and Punjab states in India and occupy the two territories and massacre all the Sikhs. The German goal is also to show to the Pashtuns that Muslims in India really hate being in India because they are discriminated against. Propaganda to paint all Muslims as evil and commit acts of violence against them is to demonstrate to the Pashtuns that Hindus hate Muslims and that they can count on the support from all Muslims in India when they attack Kashmir and the larger Punjab state consisting of the Punjab, Haryana and Himachal Pradesh states in India. Vivek Agnihotri's film Kashmir Files is one part of the propaganda campaign to demonstrate to wide audiences that Muslims are evil and are hated in India, and that all Indian Muslims are united against the Hindus and other minorities. In reality, this is far from the truth. Their purpose is to show to the Muslims, to try and show to the Muslims who they want to attack, use to attack India, is that Muslims of India are with them and they are against the Hindus. There is no escaping the fact that Kashmiri Muslims, under the influence of their leaders, committed atrocities against Kashmiri Hindus to drive them out of the state and take over their properties with little or no cost. All such evil murders, those who actually carried out the murders, the jihadis, and those who orchestrated the murders, the Muslim leaders who benefited from occupying Hindu properties, must be brought to justice by by making them pay with their lives for their crimes. However, Kashmiri Muslims are not alone in having such evil motives to murder innocent human beings so that they can take over their property and wealth or be financially rewarded. Brahmins from time immemorial have manipulated Indian society to maintain their higher status, mainly by controlling the narrative concerning the caste system. They have resorted to murder whenever necessary. There are Brahmins as evil as the Kashmiri Muslims who murdered innocent Brahmins to loot their property. And these Brahmins will murder to maintain the supremacy of their religion by murdering rivals. During the time of the ninth Sikh Guru Tegh Bahadur, the Kashmiri Pandits were being forced to convert or die. Exactly the same cry of the jihadis in 1990 in Kashmir, except the line "Leave, but leave your women behind" being added in the 1990s. Guru Tegh Bahadur sacrificed his life so that the Kashmiri Pandits would not be forced to convert. Then his son, the 10th Guru Gobind Singh, fought the Muslims most of his life to resist forcible conversions to protect Hindus, Sikhs, and Jains. In a battle at the village Chamkaur, where the Guru with 40 of his soldiers had blockaded themselves to fight the Muslims to the finish, the Mughals to the finish, two of the Guru's older sons, Ajit Singh and Jujar Singh, died fighting. Later the Guru learned that Gangu, his Brahmin servant, to whom he had entrusted his mother, wife, and his two younger sons, Zorawar Singh, 8 years old, and Fateh Singh, 5 years old, had betrayed them to the Mughal governor Wazir Khan, who, after consultation with his Brahmin official Sachanand, had both boys buried alive in a brick wall and then murdered. Sachanand had advised Wazir Khan that the offspring of a servant do not deserve mercy. Why did Sachanand advise the Mughal governor to murder two young children? Because he knew that Guru Gobind Singh would have no children left to carry on his line. He viewed the Sikh religion as a rival to Hinduism. His purpose was to destroy it by whatever means, by leaving no living descendants for the 10th Guru. That has been the Brahmin nature when anything threatens the supremacy of their religion in India or their highest caste status in Indian society. They murdered possible descendants of the 10th Guru after the Guru's father, the Guru himself, and his two elder sons had given their lives to preserve the Hindu religion of the Brahmins. Now, Kashmiri Pandits or Brahmins, as well as Brahmins from all over India, have availed of the German financial incentives by murdering Britons, Americans, or Sikhs since the 1960s. India's first Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru, a Kashmiri Brahmin, had participated in the struggle for India's independence against the British. The British had been fearful of the Sikhs because, being only about 2% of India's population, they constituted 25% of India's armed services at the time of India's independence in 1947. They had discussed that issue with Nehru, who from that time onwards discriminated against the Sikhs economically as well as in promotions in the military. Then, under German influence, whole of India began discriminating against the Sikhs and seek ways to murder as many Sikhs as possible. The Germans used the Pashtuns and Pakistan to start wars with India with the purpose of conquering Punjab state all the way to Delhi and commit genocide on the Sikhs. In the 1965 war, A scheme was hatched by the Indian Chief of the Army Staff, the Bengali Brahmin General J.N. Chaudhry, to force the Field General Lieutenant General Harbakh Singh, a Sikh, to withdraw his forces so that the Pakistani army would take Kashmir and walk into Punjab and massacre Sikhs and Hindus. But General Harbakh Singh refused to withdraw, and the Indian forces advanced all the way to the outskirts of Lahore, Pakistan's second largest city. The war and the massacre did not go as the Bengali Brahmins and the Rajputs of Rajasthan had planned, and feared their perfidy being discovered and the German hand in it. The only way to cover up their wicked deed was to murder the Prime Minister Lal Bahadur Shastri, who could possibly have discovered the truth after talking to General Harbakh Singh. The Kashmiri Brahmin, India's ambassador to Russia, Triloki Nath Kaul, obliged and had the Prime Minister murdered in Tashkent, where he had gone to conduct peace negotiations with Pakistan, a deed Vivek Agnihotri, a Brahmin himself, has tried to pin on the Russian KGB. This perfidy by the Kashmiri Brahmin has been handsomely rewarded by the Germans ever since. Kashmiri Brahmins and other Brahmins in India, including Bengali Brahmins, have cashed in by getting the best jobs, promotions, and other financial rewards. Were getting the best jobs and promotions in India and other financial rewards by emigrating to the United States and Britain. In the 1971 Bangladesh Liberation War, Prime Minister Indira Gandhi, Nehru's daughter, hence a Kashmiri Brahmin, was not yet in with the Germans as an ally and availed of any financial incentives from them. This time, perfidy against the Sikhs was committed by the Parsi Chief of the Army Staff, General Sam Manekshaw. He concentrated the fighting forces in Bangladesh and sent most of the Sikhs there, but deliberately left the western sector lightly defended so that the Pakistani army could walk into Kashmir and in Punjab all the way to New Delhi, India's capital. But the Pakistani General Pervez Musharraf did not give his forces permission to walk into India, as he is a Punjabi himself and part of his relatives still live in Delhi. The Sikh and Punjabi Hindus were again saved from genocide. Now, Indira Gandhi took action against Sam Manekshaw after discovering his perfidy by withholding some of his pay and benefits. But then later she learned about the German incentives and why the Sikhs were being discriminated against and being murdered. She then orchestrated the massacre of thousands of Sikhs in 1984. She was planning the further massacre of above 100,000 Sikhs in Delhi who would have gathered there to celebrate their first Guru's birthday. Her Sikh bodyguard got wind of her plans and assassinated her. The evil deed was carried out anyway, and a total of 30,000 Sikhs were murdered all over India in 1984. The Brahmins, particularly Kashmiri Brahmins, have again been cashing in on the financial incentives offered by the Germans and their Indian allies to a greater extent. This proves that Muslims are not the only ones given to wickedness. Kashmiri Pandits and other Brahmins in India too have much blood on their hands for brutal atrocities committed against Sikhs as well as plotting the genocide. Besides Americans and Britons, they have murdered to avail of the incentives offered by the Germans. Atrocities against Sikhs is an ongoing saga in India. Indians allied with the Germans have been plotting to murder all 50 to 60,000 Punjabi Sikhs serving in India's military. They hatched a scheme to remove them from their own regiments and disperse all of them thinly throughout the 1.4 million Indian military personnel so that it would be easy to murder them all. After that, it would be easy to exterminate the entire Sikh population. Sikh ally the United States had to kill India's top general Bipin Rawat, his wife, and 12 others by bringing down the helicopter as a warning to the Indian military to not follow through with its mad scheme. Also, we informed them that if they follow through with their scheme, We will kill millions of the best Indians abroad so that as those living in Punjab state who are allied with the Germans. We know that Modi and those allied with him will continue to hatch more schemes on how to commit genocide on the Sikhs. These people include Brahmins who hold some of the highest positions in Indian government and corporations. In my video of October 7, 2021 titled UP and Bihar Brahmins, We Read Your Signals at the Lakhimpuri Kheri Violence, I explained the reasons why Mishras, who are Brahmins who live mainly in the states of Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, and Odisha, killed 4 Sikh farmers protesting the farm bills. They wanted to cement their alliance with Modi and the rest of Indians allied with the Germans. I hope all this evidence convinces Indians that Muslims are not the only people in India. The Kashmiri Brahmin victims that the movie depicts are capable of atrocities of the same kind as cunningly as the Muslims. As I have warned, our goal is to bring the Kashmiri Muslim murderers, both low and high, who have committed atrocities against Kashmiri Pandits, other Hindus and Sikhs to justice and make them pay for the murders with their lives and restore what they have looted. Kashmiri Brahmins, and other Indians who have committed similar atrocities will also be brought to justice by paying for their crimes and with their lives. Our goal is not to let anyone get away with crimes, especially who allied themselves with the Germans for financial rewards for committing murder of innocent people. Thank you very much for watching this video. Please continue to watch my videos and read my articles on important world events, World War III watch, politics, international business, advice on health and medical problems, and much more for in-depth and insightful analysis. Please also subscribe to my YouTube and Facebook channels, Unmasked Truth with Harmanjeet Saini, to view and get information on the latest videos. Some people do not have the time to go through the full length of videos. They find it more convenient to read the text of the video. Unfortunately, YouTube does not provide the capability to make the text of my videos available on YouTube. But fortunately, Facebook does provide that capability. So I make the text of my videos available on my Facebook channel, which you can easily copy.